Hey everyone and welcome. Today we're going to dive into a question that really sits at the heart of some major world religions. Can God become human? Now it sounds simple, but trust me, the implications are absolutely massive for how we even begin to think about the divine. Let's unpack it.
Just think about that for a second. An all-powerful, infinite, eternal being choosing to enter our finite, fragile human world? Could that even happen? And the way you answer that question, it really reveals a whole lot about your entire conception of God.
For Islam, the answer is a huge, resounding, absolute no. It's a foundational truth. It's completely non-negotiable. The very idea of God taking on a human form is seen as, well, both a logical and a theological impossibility.
And this idea is cemented right in the Quran, in one of its most essential chapters, Surah Al-Ikhlas. This verse draws a crystal-clear, absolute line in the sand. It declares that God is completely outside the cycle of birth and generation that defines, well, everything else that exists. He is utterly, fundamentally separate.
Okay, so why is this view held so strongly? To really get it, we've got to look at two core principles of Islamic theology. These ideas, they're basically the bedrock for understanding God's very nature in Islam. First up, we have what's called Tawheed. This is the absolute, no-compromise belief in the oneness of God. It's the central pillar of the faith. It means God can't be divided, he can't have partners, he has no equals. It's really all about this radical and, in its own way, beautiful simplicity.
And building right on top of that is the second principle, Tanzih. Now, this one is absolutely crucial for our big question. This doctrine of transcendence basically says that God is so fundamentally different from his creation that you can't even compare him to anything in it. He's beyond our categories of understanding, things like form, space, or time. And from that perspective, becoming human, it's just not on the table.
And there's a verse that just nails both of these ideas perfectly. It confirms God's total uniqueness, nothing like unto him, but at the same time, it shows his active power in the world. He is the all-hearing, the all-seeing. From this point of view, for God to become like one of his creations would be to violate the very thing that makes him God.
And you've got to remember, there's some really important history here. This theology didn't just pop up in a vacuum. It was a radical, revolutionary rejection of all the polytheism and idol worship that was everywhere in Arabia at the time. It was a way to purify worship and focus it entirely on the one true transcendent creator. But here's where things get really interesting. This very commitment to God being so separate, well, it opens up a pretty fascinating philosophical paradox. It's a direct challenge to what it even means to have absolute power.
And this is really the heart of the whole critique. The moment you say God cannot become human, it kind of sounds like you're putting a limit on an unlimited being. So the question becomes, if being all-powerful means you can do anything that's logically possible, does this doctrine accidentally put God in a box? So, here you can really see the two sides of the coin. On one side, the argument is that God's perfection means he cannot enter our world, because that would compromise his absolute transcendence. But on the other side, the critique says that a truly all-powerful God must be able to do anything, and that includes choosing to enter the finite world. So which one is the greater definition of power? Okay, to make this a little easier to grasp, let's use an analogy. Imagine a powerful king. He's totally secure in his rule. He has the freedom and the authority to, say, walk among his subjects in disguise, to really understand their lives from the inside.
See, him choosing to do that doesn't make him any less of a king, right? You could actually argue it enhances his kingship. It shows a deep humility, a kind of love, and a power so great that it's not threatened at all by taking on a lesser form for a little while. So, as you can probably guess, these totally different starting points lead to two very different ways of thinking about the relationship between humanity and the divine. They really shape how believers approach God. In the Islamic model, it's primarily what you'd call a vertical relationship. God is the master, humans are the servants. The whole thing is built on reverence, awe, and submission. In contrast, traditions that do allow for incarnation, like Christianity and Hinduism, they tend to foster a more relational model. God is a father, a friend, a direct participant in the human story. It's much more about intimacy and love.
And we see this other model play out really clearly in other big traditions. In Christianity, you have Jesus as Emmanuel, which literally means God with us. That's the ultimate expression of divine closeness. And in Hinduism, you have the idea of Avatara, where a supreme being like Vishnu comes down into the world in different forms to help guide humanity and restore cosmic balance.
And man, this quote from C.S. Lewis just sums it up so perfectly. From this point of view, incarnation isn't about God becoming less. It's about raising humanity up to become more. It's about bridging that massive gap between the Creator and the created through an unbelievable act of love. It completely reframes what divine power even means.
So after all that, where do we land? At the end of the day, this whole debate isn't just some abstract thing for theologians to argue about. It's really about what we consider to be the ultimate expression of divine power and majesty.
Is ultimate power found in a God who stays absolutely separate, untouchable, preserving his majesty through distance? Or is it found in a God whose power is so immense, so boundless, that he can actually choose to draw near, to enter his own creation without being diminished by it one bit?
And that really leaves us with one last big question to chew on. Which God is truly greater? The one whose majesty is defined by something he cannot do? Or the one whose majesty is defined by the absolute freedom to choose to do anything, even become one of us? That's definitely something worth pondering.